So, due to an unfortunate glitch that happened in the live, uh, we have this situation where I have to record another video to continue that which was left out. So, we missed out on these aspects about the performance review, which is that if an employee suddenly performs differently, which is they perform too well or they don't perform well enough, this is where you want to collaborate with the team lead to find out exactly what has gone right or what has gone wrong and make that adjustment in the performance review accordingly. He also makes recommendations on what are some of the things that you have to do, like prepare. He wants people who do performance reviews to prepare about the review in question so that whoever it is that is getting reviewed, they don't feel as if they are being ignored or their work is being taken for granted. Irrespective of how good or how bad their performance is, the performance review maker or giver has to prepare. Then they also have to be very honest with how they give the performance review, in that if they praise someone, their praise should not come off in a standoffish way. It has to seem genuine, it has to seem honest. Similarly, if they criticize someone, it shouldn't seem malicious. It should seem honest. It should seem genuine. It should show that you care. That's why you are highlighting the problem areas, right? And that is where he says that you should watch your own body language, in the sense that if you are giving a performance review, watch your body language and also watch the body language of the person you are giving the performance review to. In that, if they are reacting with hostility or if their stature is kind of becoming confrontational or it is becoming deflated, essentially their body language is showing how they might be angry, in denial, in blame mode,
that is
or
being
upset
said.
by
And
whatever it is that is. When they observe this, they want to immediately curb that or nip that in the bud, which is where his next suggestion comes in, which is check whether your message is being heard. So sometimes what you say and what the other people or what the other person hears are two very different things. And he says you should avoid that at every given opportunity, primarily because, again, context matters. People might have some biases against you, for you, etc., etc., and those should not play into the situation when the performance review is being delivered. So, he recommends that check whether your message is being heard. And last recommendation he makes is you should always give suggestions. No matter what kind of a performance review you are giving, a positive, a negative, a neutral, it should include suggestions, because a suggestion shows that you are not just blindly, it shows that you're not just blindly kind of giving criticism and praise. It shows that you care. It shows that you care about the employee and their well-being, and not just you doing your job, which is to give a performance review and then forget about it, right? So he recommends that give suggestions always. And one very fascinating thing he says is always focus on your star performers. These are employees that perform the best in any team. And he says those should be given the most thorough performance reviews, because essentially they have the highest output, the best communication skills, all of that. And so they want to focus on these employees more while doing the performance reviews. He specifically stresses on ensuring that your body language is normal and supportive, and that you should, if you are a performance reviewer, ensure that you are nipping ignorance, denial, and anger in the bud, and instead focusing on responsibilities, solutions, and suggestions. Right? So, this is it for this chapter, and then we move on to chapter 14, which is about two difficult tasks. Now, these two difficult tasks are essentially interviewing people and retaining people. And chapter 14, 15, and 16 should and could actually be reviewed together. So that's what I'm going to do. Essentially, he talks about how to interview the best candidates. You are supposed to have an objective interview regime, in that you can take all sorts of tests and still end up with the wrong employee. And he very candidly goes into giving an exact example of how that had happened at Intel, which is they had the perfect person, ideally perfect person for the job. And then they came to the job and kind of didn't really perform as per expectations like at all. So this is where he says that numeric measures or qualitative measures that you have to kind of find out what might work and what might not can often mislead you into hiring the wrong candidate. So always go with your gut instinct on this one as well. Alongside, of course, also checking whether the person you are hiring is clearing all the required tests and everything. So, as with most hiring decisions, he has recommendations like give should be able to clear specific qualitative expertise based and quantitative tests. Alongside that, they should show a level of intellectual and emotional flexibility when it comes to working well within an organization that already operates well without this person being a part of the workforce. So he wants to ask questions that are based on skills, questions that are based on strengths and weaknesses, questions that kind of calculate what values a person has and whether their values gel with the organization in question. And if all of these questions are answered as to your satisfaction, not just in terms of your quantitative and qualitative basis, but also on the basis of your gut instinct, because you are somebody who carries out hiring for the organization, you probably have some idea of what works with the organization, right? And he says two things here. The first thing he says that despite everything, despite you getting everything right in terms of hiring, chances are that this employee could fail. And that happens. Occasionally that does show up. So don't get demoralized by that. Just try to figure out how to reduce the chances of that phenomena happening in the future. Second thing he mentions is if an employee comes to you and says, I quit, when they have made the decision of quitting already, not I'm thinking about quitting, but actually saying I quit, that means that you've lost the battle already. So when you hire someone, ensure that whoever it is you are hiring doesn't come to that decision of I quit. Primarily because that is an indicator of a lot of things that might be going wrong within the organization. And ideally, he says employers want to avoid that, right? Then he wants, during the interview process, he wants you, if you are somebody who hires people, to check for skill gaps and resume gaps. In the sense, when someone mentions they know certain technical languages, they should be able to answer basic questions pertaining and even complicated questions pertaining to that technical language. If they are unable to answer it, it means that there's a skill gap. So even if everything else about that candidate seems to be perfect, but then there is a skill gap, you want to see that, you want to kind of see whether you can fix that skill gap without spending a lot of resources, or just completely kind of pass over this candidate and hire somebody else instead. So he wants you to check for skill gaps. He wants you to see whether there are any discrepancies, there are any indicators of how this person learns or does not learn from their past failures, because failures is something that happens to almost everyone. Some people are just better at hiding it, and you don't want somebody like that who hid from the failure and didn't really learn anything from the failure in question, right? So these are some of the things he says. He also says that you want to retain all good employees by collaborating with the supervisor. You want to do this because if you don't, this can create a cascading effect. You have one employee that comes and says, I quit. They quit, they move on to, say, a better opportunity, or they move on to have a better career. And that's good for the employee, but that's bad for the organization, primarily because other employees within the organization will look at this and they'll be like, oh, I think I need to quit too. And that's what will happen. And so you want to work with the supervisor on this one to prevent like this cascading resignation spree, if you will, right? So yeah, this is what he recommends. And the next chapter is about how compensation is a TRM, or task relevant maturity, or task relevant factor, so to speak. In that, obviously, how you're paid in an organization is going to determine how you feel about that, how you feel about your value as an employee within that organization. If you do something really well and you're not given a bonus, you're given a good performance review, but you are not given any other acknowledgement of your really good performance within the organization, you're probably going to go, they don't appreciate me, I should look for better pastures. And you are going to go to your HR department and say, I quit, right? And he says that as organizations, you want to keep this in check, because salary is what people anchor their perception of performance to. No matter how good or how bad of a performance review you give someone, if that doesn't kind of showcase in the monetary compensation that an employee receives, they are probably going to look for greener pastures. Like green this time literally means the greenback, which is a way of saying the US dollar, right? So you don't want to get the salary wrong on any employee. That is, you don't want to reward someone who didn't deserve the reward, but you also don't want to miss out on rewarding people who definitely deserve the reward. So these are some of the things that he asks us to be careful of while analyzing salaries. And he mentions how salary is a task relevant factor, right? Anyhow, the last chapter is so it's funny because we seem to, many of us seem to look at the coaching industry and the training industry as something that you have to work with or deal with while we are at work. What we don't realize is trainers and coaches do have a role to play, in that they know how to find gaps in knowledge and skills. And the really the ones with actual real field expertise in this industry, they also know how to fix the gaps. And so this is where Andrew Grove does the Andrew Grove thing, which is he recommends do not cheap out here. He says if you cheap out on hiring proper trainers or coaches, that's going to reflect later on, right? So there is that. So thank you so much for watching. I would like to once again apologize for the live glitching. I'm working on fixing it. Hopefully it gets fixed soon. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and yeah, thank you for the support.